Wealth, security, and opportunity are a byproduct of success. However, it often comes at the expense of deep personal satisfaction and happiness. This is the Design Your Destiny podcast, and I am your host, Penny Chason, board-certified hypnotist and #1 international best-selling author. I work with the highly successful influencers, business leaders, corporate leaders who desire a life by design. In this podcast, I will bring to you succinct solo episodes and interviews that dissect the challenges of success and highlights the ways to leverage your most underutilized asset, your subconscious mind. If you desire peace and happiness in your life, better health, and stronger relationships so you can enjoy the success that you have created, keep listening because this podcast is for you. Okay. Hey, everybody. It's Penny here. Not a formal intro here yet because we're doing the pre-talk and we're in the middle of something amazing and we want to catch it naturally in the moment. I'll intro her in a moment, but here's Annie. And we were talking about symbiosis of the work that we do together, the amygdala, imposter syndrome, and how to monitor our well-being. Annie, go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Penny. Thank you. I'm so great for this pre-talk, right? The warm-up. Is that I was listening to that one particular episode, and what I was struck by was how, and I do get emotional about it. I can feel the feelings coming up. It's so beautiful how your work and my work, they jive. There's this collaborative essence. Because you were talking about the amygdala, and the amygdala's job, is I'm going to be supporting you. I'm monitoring well-being, alert, right? And then things can happen when we don't feel safe and secure, right? So imposter syndrome, fears, whatever, right? Kicks into gear. So what I was thinking about is how precious creating sanctuary is, how precious finding and cultivating a sense of sanctuary is, because what we're doing at any level of creating sanctuary, from, so let's say, a full on outdoor garden space to this momentary, what I have in front of me right now, mini little sanctuary moment altar on my desk, is we are creating the backdrop that says, yo, you're safe, you're secure. You're safe, you're secure. And just this idea that I'm doing it in the physical world, helping people create that sense of sanctuary in the physical world, that is triggering what you're helping people with on their inner world. That we are tying those two pieces together, and how beautiful it is that when we bring in those elements of nature and tap into those allies, we are calming that brain down. So it's working in the background. So when you create a sanctuary space, no matter where on the continuum, the ribbon, it's working in the background to help support you. And essentially, I would make the leap, your destiny. It's helping you. I'm making that really big leap, but it's working in the background. It's saying, I'm this empowering environment that's telling your brain, your subconscious, you're safe, it's calm, there's peace here. Because you've purposely and intentionally done that, right? You've done the work to know, okay, what is sanctuary for me? You're working with Penny, and you're saying, okay, these are the points in which I'm getting tripped up, right? And then what we do in that, it's so beautiful how those things, they lace together, I think, just are weave together beautifully. So that's what I got all excited about. Was like, yeah.
So what was leading into that, everyone, just to kind of back up a little bit? Annie and I have known each other for 4.5 years.
Yes.
Right. And where we met, we were in a group together, and such a calming presence. And she would talk about building sanctuary for people. And we're going to get into her bio in just a little bit, and she can explain her natural progression. But as we led into the conversation that we just picked up in the middle of at the beginning of the episode here, I was telling her that the one thing I connect to her with mentally, emotionally, her identity to me, is that I have a swimming pool. And it is my intention that I'm going to have her design my sanctuary around my swimming pool so that it's my heaven. Now, I love being outdoors in nature. I have the farm. You may or may not have heard me talk about that or see it on social. It's really grounding, and it's peaceful, and it's not desensitizing. That's not the word I'm looking for. It helps you to become less stimulated is the word I'm looking
How
for.
about regulated?
Regulated, grounded.
Yeah.
I mean, we can think of any number of words, but I want there to be like this little paradise that is my place around the pool, because to be honest, my husband gets the other 80 acres. I get the pool. Right. So that's what I identify her with, being someone who can come in and create the space where you feel safe, you feel grounded. It infuses a frequency within you that is the frequency of all. It's the frequency of the all, because at the end of the day, we are all connected. We are not separate. And we're connected to the earth, and we're connected to the plants. We're all on energetic frequencies. And these things, our environment can support us, or our environment can overstimulate us and overwhelm us. And that's a choice. And I know some people will argue with that. No, my workspace has to be this and this has to be that. There's still choice in all of that. So I want Annie to take a moment and to really introduce who she is, and what it is that she does in her progression a little bit, because I think that people are going to find that your origins in helping people might not necessarily be where they would think, because we're sitting here talking about plants and sanctuary and energy and frequency and connection. So Annie, please just let people know a little bit about you.
Well, thank you, Penny, for that. I often laugh. So first I'm going to say this. Hi, I'm Annie. And my nickname is Annie Redbird. So you should know going in is that I'm not going to do the introduction like so many people do, because I am truly a Redbird. And what that means is my journey to this point in time in this chair has been one where I have embraced the things that originally I was domesticated or programmed or what have you to not appreciate about myself. I have embraced them. And what does that mean? So it goes like this. I am a creative channel. I am a hypersensitive, deeply intuitive designer. I am a wellness space expert. And I have studied with some of the most amazing giants in the industry, in research and development, and some of the most beautiful native tribes people to learn the lessons in which I share through my work. And I'm a healer, and I am a helper. And I come from a background that is trifold. We were talking at the top about the word tri. So trifold, I come from, my first stop is in social work. I worked in community mental health, which those of you that are in social work or former social workers, you know that is the front line. And so that was my my first stop on the career path. I moved into biomed, worked in research and development for the heart. So if you follow me, I'm talking about first the mind, right? Social work. And then I went into biomed and worked in research and development, all about the heart. And through a process personally, in sort of personal circumstances, instigating change, I found myself 3 blocks from the University of Arizona master's program in landscape architecture, and I enrolled. Because through my journey, every stop, social work, biomed, and then landscape architecture, what I was weaving together was that through my creative spark, this inner knowing about how to connect dots to help people feel safe, what I was doing is every part along that route, I was aware of how nature was instrumental in shifting and changing my state and those I was working with. And so, hello, I'm Annie Redbird, and I am a sanctuary space designer. I'm a consultant, and I'm an instigator. I'm an instigator at heart. That's the Redbird. So it's nice to be with you.
You mentioned that it was domesticated out of you. Sometimes I use the word indoctrinated, but yes, domesticated out of you. Talk a little bit about that. Like, did as you got older and you reconnected, what was the pivotal point, getting tongue-tied, that you really went, you know what, it's time to go back to my intuitive gift? Was there anything that happened? Was there resistance? Did something happen that you recognized that you were out of alignment?
Well, that's a great question, because I don't subscribe. This is the zag in me. I don't subscribe that we're ever out of alignment. I don't think that we're ever out of alignment. I would go so far, and I'm still a student in this, I want you to understand, is I'd go so far as I don't think there's anything we ever have to heal. I think that what the practice is the misunderstanding that is the separation between the full acceptance and wholeness. The gap is what we're healing. Honestly, that's what we're healing. And the gap is the gap in awareness, the gap that comes from domestication. And so this is my in my midlife experience, sitting right here in midlife, I'm aware that, can I swear on this?
Yes.
Because I know you do. I know you do on yours. I just don't know if you like your guests to swear, but like, holy shit, man. I hear I'm sitting, and there is fundamentally nothing wrong with me. There's not. It's just my preconceived notions, or this gap that's keeping me separate from the sanctuary within. That's my language, right? And so you're asking about a pinpoint, and I would say, well, each time that I took a turn, a pivot, whatever, it's all instigated to a remembering. It's all instigating a remembrance of myself. So when I went from social work to biomed, there was a personal circumstance. When I went from biomed to landscape architecture, there was a personal circumstance. Those are so wildly painful and prosperous at the same time. And so what I know to be true is that I was recognizing that happening in the natural world, which was helping me understand in my inner world. And so was there something that I could speak to? I think most recently, particularly with you, Penny, you and I had a most amazing hypnosis session after my brother died. And that was a very powerful experience, because what was happening in those moments leading up to our session and then after, in that very acute grief experience, was I was getting a watershed of tap, those intuitive taps. My guides were without a doubt saying, hello. This is important information that you need to get on this. You need to get on this. And I was getting sort of a, how do I want to describe it? You know how people do hand-me-downs? There's that whole idea, concept of hand-me-down. Well, what was happening with my brother as he was transitioning is he was handing me his intuitive gifts. So as we moved through our session, our hypnosis, and I was needing so deeply the assistance of release, is at the same time I was doubling up, I guess you could say, on those intuitive gifts, and needing to figure out how to manage that is the moment, I think, for me. And I can acutely remember the moment in that session where, oh, this shit's real. This is real. There is a power, a force. This is something that I was definitely instructed to sit down on. I know that came from my father, who was very gifted, and he dealt with it in his own ways via alcohol. I know my brother was deeply gifted, and he dealt with it his own ways. And so here I am, like, okay, let's find a new way. Let's find a new way to mend that gap and welcome in those gifts. And so that's where I am now. Ironically, because that session, Penny, the session that we had, almost to the date of this call that you and I are at.
You're exactly right.
About 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
And speaking of nature, I recall, due to the internet connection, you took that call from out in the field.
That's right.
In your car. Yes.
I was.
I may not be able to remember my middle name sometimes.
Because it was a powerful visual. The setting, I needed to be out in the field. Get that, everybody. Mm-hmm. I needed to be out in the field in order to get that reception. If that doesn't speak metaphor, I don't know what would.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really, really deep. And I love what you said. We're all part of the collective consciousness. We're all connected. And you were saying something that has literally been coming through me as I've been doing some work. Owning a business, you're constantly reevaluating, reframing what it is that you do. And I literally sat here yesterday, and when I was talking about one of my pillars, the illuminate pillar, it's all about awareness. And what it is, it's identifying the gaps. I mean, you can't make this shit up.
Oh my God.
It's about identifying the gaps, and the alignment, like aligning our identity, is about aligning our beliefs and our thoughts to what it is that we're here to do. Like you say, it's really not a misalignment, right? So like we're just vibing together all over the place with that. But, I appreciate you sharing that, because while I knew that you shared it was powerful session, I did not know all of that. And there's more to that. I'm not called to share right now. I don't think it's appropriate to share what's coming through for me right now. We'll save that for the after the show.
The after party.
but just to understand the power that we hold, in that if we simply get silent, and nature and sanctuary can help us do this, to get silent and tune in. Each and every one of you listening to this, you are far more powerful than you can ever imagine. I'm more powerful than I can imagine. And I've been on this journey for a few years now, doing the work. And I'm like, oh, wow, yes, I'm available for this and more, please. So yeah, I just absolutely love that. So I'm just curious for you. A lot of people talk about the morning routine, the structure, the this and the that. Like, for you personally, and the work that you do, where you're tapping in and tuning into nature and frequency. And I personally, maybe this is a misperception I have. I feel like you're tuned into your antenna all the time. I'm not there yet. But like, when do you find is the most powerful or potent time of day for you to work, to be creative, to do the things that are important to you?
Oh, I just got a massive hit on that. Whoa. So let me just sort of take that in for a second. So 4:32 a.m. is a very, very potent time for me. 4:32 a.m. That's when I consistently wake And that's when I am blessed with a lovely conversation that happens. Sometimes it's maybe stuff I don't necessarily, care for, but that's a beautiful time. And then 3 p.m. is my like amazingly productive. And the intuitive hit I just got was check the circadian rhythm of what organ at 4:32 a.m. is sort of cleaning and clearing, is what happened when I got that hit.
Yeah, you got
was
that
like
hit.
I got the hit. Check which organ is in its circadian rhythm at that point, because I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
Because like my husband Steve, for instance, sidebar is he's regained a massive amount of liver health. But before we understood what was going on with his liver, he was waking up every morning at 3 a.m., like on the dot, which is when the liver is doing its like freedom, and so it's so helpful to understand that. So 3 p.m. though is when there is a transcendence that arrives, 3 p.m. PST.
Yeah. I think that's amazing, because so many people buy into this idea that to be successful, a lot of my people want wealth. Not everyone wants wealth. We can define wealth in an abundance of ways. So we're not defining zeros or commas or anything like that. But it's been conveyed to people, if you want to achieve Y, then you must do it like X. You got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You need 4 power hours. You dive right in. You go to the gym. You do this. Let me tell you what, if that was the way I had to do things, I wouldn't be in business, because I'm just like, when I spontaneously wake up and I'm inspired, I can get a massive amount of work done in those hours. But that's generally not my productive time. It's like from 10 to 2 is when I'm in my zone, which is why I never see a client before 10 o'clock. And here you are, it's 3. Now, I know some people do have rigid schedules, but for those who own their own businesses, like, what would you share about that schedule? Because you just said you had the intuitive hit around like what happens at 4:32 a.m., the circadian rhythm, and I want to come back to that. But first, what about the schedule?
Well, what's so beautiful about that question is that I have very successfully beat myself up to try to fit in that box that you mentioned. I have been very successful in beating myself up, beautifully so. And what I would tell people at sort of a top level is to honor, which is a tricky thing. And here's why. And these are bullet points. So one of the pieces is seasonally I change. So when I'm working with my folks, and we're in membership, right? We are looking at, in my membership, we're looking at the seasonal changes and how sanctuaries is expressing differently in the seasons for me. Nature is expressing differently. My body is nature. It's going to change, right? And that's not even to mention the midlife stuff that's going on. So that's a whole sidebar. So one of the things is just to honor the fact that there are seasons. There are true cycles. Now, some people will respond to a clock cycle, some people will respond to a moon cycle, and some people will respond to seasonal cycle, and there's probably others, right? And so for me, there is a balance of that along with being a mama. And that's what I want to just highlight, is there are many of us entrepreneurs that are parental units. we are the caregivers of people who are younger from us, who are also trying to figure out their sleep cycles, right? And their power cycles and whatever. So as Ambrose, that's my beautiful baby from the sea, as Ambrose moves through different, now he's in kindergarten, right? So there's been a change in schedule, change in season. So I am choosing to find ways that I can still fetch him from the bus and also have that maximum power time, right? And so okay, you have to pardon me, Penny, but a beautiful, beautiful bird of prey just flew by the big window. So
I knew there was something that pulled your
there,
energy that direction. I felt it.
wow. And it has landed. Okay. So I am graced with this opportunity right now to go, okay, what's this season that we're in? It's winter right now, as at the time of this. This is winter. And I'm in this rest, but I'm in this like getting ready sort of feeling. And I know that I got to fetch him from the bus. So there's a spiritual thing. I think how I would describe sanctuary, if someone were to stop me on the street and put me on the spot right away, I would say sanctuary is the moment, the bridge between the spiritual and the practical. It's that nexus. So when you talk about schedule, how do I find a sense of sanctuary for myself with the practical of fetching him off the bus during my power hour, and the spiritual that I know that I'm open as a channel during these potent times? And so it's honoring that and not beating myself up, because I've already done that, been there, and that is highly unproductive. And it shuts down the channel. When I am mean to myself, the channel goes down. The radio signal is not on. So these are lessons in progress.
Circling back to what you mentioned about 4:32 a.m. and that hit that you had.
Yeah.
So many times, spirit, the universe, our higher self, whatever you choose to call it as you're listening, you call it your angels, your guides, however you receive the hit. So many times we receive these messages and we think they're just like random ass thoughts. We're like, well, that's crazy. Where'd that come from? And we dismiss it. We think it's just random thinking. And why did my mind go there? It went there for a reason. Trust yourself when those things go that direction. So
may I say something
please.
about that? It's
Absolutely.
about normalized magic. So when you say trust yourself about that, immediately I'm like, if more people did trust themselves about that, we'd be in a different state, consciously.
Yeah, we definitely would.
And there's this idea that, why don't we just normalize it? Why don't we just normalize the fact that there's magic that's happening then, and it's
Exactly.
okay. Yeah.
And some people think of magic and they think the things that they've seen on TV or they've heard in church. But I think what I'm receiving from you is that when we're talking magical, we're talking things that we necessarily can't put our fingers on and explain through our 3D lens and filter. I mean, it's not uncommon to see people who are very successful and they're talking about spiritual principles and they'll say, oh, this isn't woo, this is in the Kabbalion, right? And I'm sitting here going, the Kabbalion, for somebody who's not spiritual, like how much more woo could you get, right? Like people equate that with the woo, and woo is not bad or good. There are people who go out and they consult numerologists, they consult psychics, they consult people to come in and help them with the moon cycles as they do major business launches in their corporations. And here's the thing, we all have the ability to tune in. Like, of course, I'm going to call you when I'm ready for my pool sanctuary, right? I would call our friend Eichel to plan around the moon, because there's more to it than just, is it a full moon or a new moon? And that is her expertise. And I absolutely adore her for that. But we have the ability to tune into our sense. And it begins with knowing who we are, remembering. I love that you talk about remembering, because that's really what it is. When you work with clients and they're wanting to create sanctuary, what is the process that you take them through? And typically, what is their goal? And is that goal always the same thing as the end result that they actually experience, which I think I already know the answer to, but I'm going to let you.
This is one of those times where we have been already having conversation with each other before we got into conversation, right?
Apparently.
Yes, indeed. And so the more sarcastic side of me would say, if I had a nickel for every time someone said, I really want to create a beautiful space, and something to the effect of, but I don't want to talk about any of that other stuff. Well, then you have two choices that I can plainly see. One, you don't talk to me, or you let it happen, right? And so I think that one of the things in my industry, kind of zooming out, and so let's just go the design industry, what often happens is people are seeking the external first, and then the internal happens, right? And that's fine. I mean, if it gets people to the internal, I'm all for that. But what also happens in that is like we jam up and we clutter up, because we will sort of buy too much, consume too much, and think that external is going to help make a space feel magical, feel sanctuary, feel healing. And so to your question, several questions in there, but the one I'll start with is, when I'm working with people, where we start is, what is sanctuary for you? Because again, if I had a dime for every time I got interviewed and it was asked, well, what's your design style? My design style is not me. My style is you. My style is being an ambassadress that gets you from point A to point B, which is to, what is sanctuary for you, and what is sanctuary within you? What is within you that we want to express externally, that's going to be your empowering environment that provides you this radical encouragement for the all that you are, for that helps you feel in those moments where your brain is like rock shit crazy. It will help you settle on down, and will help you understand you are the most beautiful essence. And so for me, my job as a creative channel is to help you translate that information. And to translate that information, we need to understand and drench you in a sense of sanctuary within. So we go through a process of essentially branding your sanctuary. We are branding your environment with your appreciation for beauty, sacred beauty, the beauty that is within you, that is expressed, because your style is your style. And I love this research that's coming out. Harvard has a specific program around neuroaesthetics that talks to this. I just happen to understand to do it, and it's being backed now by science, which is fantastic, right? And the Ziki, a researcher, was showing people beautiful scenes. He had a group of mathematicians, I think fashion designers, and one other group, and he was showing them beautiful scenes relative to their industry, to their job, to their profession. And what he found in that research that led to this field of neuroaesthetics is that when people saw, and I get choked up about this, when people saw something that was beautiful to them, because remember, there are mathematicians in this group too, a beautiful mathematical equation, their brain did two things at the same time. Can you guess?
No.
Okay,
I would say they went into cohesion, but
their brain It did two things. It said it released the calm chemicals, calm, at the same time as it sends signals of feelings of love. Same time. So there was this stress relief response, and then the love, like that highest vibration of love feeling happened at the same time. So when we go through the process of creating sanctuary, one of the first things that we're establishing is, what is your sacred beauty code? What's the code that helps you feel that helps you experience that? What is it that's in your environment that we want to attend to that's going to do that for you? Because you know what? In sort of brass tacks practical, it's going to make shopping for elements in your space a lot easier. So that's going to help reduce the sort of gross consumption that happens. And it's going to very quickly help elicit a response that is desirable. Because who doesn't want to feel love? Who doesn't want to feel that feeling? And then, of course, there's a watershed of responses that can happen in a body that are reparative from that. Then we can get to quote unquote healing that a science would recognize, right? So in my process, one of our first stops is, what is sanctuary within? What's that expression of sanctuary that is you? And we look at the sacred beauty code. We look at what is your style, and we develop a sense of that helps us move through the process of design very, not quickly. I wouldn't say quickly, but efficiently from that perspective. And that can help you open up. You mentioned the word tune in. You know, that people are like, well, how do I tune in? This is how we tune in. This is we create this empowering environment that is encouraging that tuning in.
People often ask me, how do I find my dharma? How do I get into alignment? All of these things. And it's like, get curious and follow your feelings. Your feelings are the breadcrumbs. Oh, yeah. And everything that I just heard you say distills down to the frequency and vibration of love.
It does, doesn't it?
Just follow your feelings. And some people say, I don't know how. And then my response to that is, get playful. Think about things you wanted to do as a kid and you weren't allowed to do, or there wasn't time to do, or there wasn't money to do, or something that someone told you, oh, you can't make money doing that. Go do those things. Right now in my house, I haven't plugged it in yet. It's been there for 8 months, but I'm making space. And when the time is right, I will. But last year I was like, you need to get an electric guitar and an amplifier. Now, when I was a teenager, my stepdad was teaching me to play by ear.
Nice.
I haven't had hands on a guitar in 20, 30 years, but he gave me an electric guitar that he had just had completely redone by someone who's a really snazzy guitar player. And I bought an inexpensive amplifier. When it warms up, I'm going to get out by the pool and I'm going to drive my neighbors who are a quarter mile away crazy because I'm going to be screeching on that thing, because it just feels like, I mean, can you feel my energy? Like,
oh yeah. And I can also see you playing guitar. Like I can totally see. I mean, literally, I can see you. I'm laughing about that.
Oh my goodness. My goodness. So yeah. I know that at one point you had shared with me like the scale of some of the things that you did. Like, what has been one of the most moving sanctuaries that you've ever created? Like the transformation that it provided, not for the space, but for the people involved. Like,
well, that's bringing me instantly to tears. Penny. Wow. Okay. I was not prepared for that question.
Well, it just came to me. So,
and what's happening? And there's a reason why it came to you, obviously, is so you asked the question and my imagination just like starts a Rolodex, right? So I get these like, and then at the same time, or nearly the same time, or in that same heartbeat, is, that is the thing that is my work currently to do is to receive the evidence of my gift. So it's really important, everyone, to hear that, is to be open to receiving the evidence of your gift. So the most profound, I think, is what you're asking me, like from that. And they're creatures large and small in that Rolodex. Moments, I think that what I would say is I help people create beautiful spaces. They are amazing spaces. They are very, very beautiful. But that is not how I gauge my success. I gauge my success on the moments where someone will stop in that space, turn around, and look at me. And this is what makes me feel so emotional, is they will look at me and comment on some sort of opening in awareness. And so that's the Rolodex. That's the Rolodex, is that, or a voice message that I get from somebody. Maybe I worked with them 2 years ago, and they're having some sort of epiphany right now. And that there are these openings. And for me, they're like openings of light that just happen. And so that, that's touching. The first one that came, I will share this one. The first one that came is this moment where I'm in an elementary school library, and I am doing a group project, pro bono group project in graduate school. And it's in an elementary school, and the concept that we're brought there, this beautiful group of grad students, is to create an outdoor classroom to honor one of the students, a fifth grader who had been shot by a drive-by. And so this is to be an honoring this outdoor classroom. And so we blow up the plan of attack, which is, we're not just going to do a classroom, we're going to do the whole campus. So this really awesome team I'm with, this is what we're going to do. But the moment is, I'm in the library, and there are teachers, students, parents, and I'm presenting what is we'll call it the heart of the design. And I'm showing on a board.
I'm getting chills right now from head to toe. Just
right on, me too. So, and I'm showing, this is really hard because I'm so emotional about it. It's bringing something, and this is 25 years ago. I'm showing a board of what I've drawn. And this is before I really realized, this shit's big, is I've just received the design. That's sort of like what just came to me, idea. This is before I understood, right? And so I'm sharing it, just sort of palms open, holding the board, and the kids are in the front row on their knees, sitting, right? Crisscross applesauce. And they all come in close to this board of my drawing, of the space planning, and the images that I'm using to express that, so reference images. And they just come in, and I am encircled by these kids who are talking about Oscar, the fifth grader, who are talking about him and what he would like. That feels like Oscar. Oh, that's where he would play. And so there's this like discussion about that. And I am enveloped in this love in that moment, and understanding that download and that conveyance is what's orchestrating this healing. And that was the first moment when you asked me that question. It's that moment in the library.
As air fingers quote healers, right? Because nothing truly needs to be healed. And light workers, we're simply conduits.
100%.
We're conduits. And, I asked a client who was offboarding this morning, not for me, but for them. I was like, what has been the most pivotal point of the work that we've done together? Like, what was most profound? And I normally don't ask that question, but I felt called to ask this person that question, and it ended up having the perfect full circle response. And it was like, the way that you ask me questions, you don't tell me what to think. You don't tell me how to think. You don't tell me where I need to find my happiness. You ask me questions that led me to the answers inside of me. And, that work in and of itself, like you say, it came through, right? And that moment that you had with those children, for a lot of us grown-ups in the world, depending on where we are in our journey, that might seem like, oh, that was a special moment, or that was a precious moment. I have zero doubt that had lasting change on those kids. They're being seen, they're being heard. The energy of their friend was there. And there's still that connection, right? Like there may be 3D loss, but on a frequency, there was no loss there.
No. And I want to highlight, Penny, that I think a good designer is simply an open conduit.
Yeah.
I think that a successful designer is simply an open conduit. And for me, it's as a sanctuary conduit, right? And at times maybe a sanctuary siren, right? Or an instigator. And what I feel I was simply, air quotes, doing and have done in my career is to encourage and see, being a seer, to see the sanctuary that is within and saying, Red Rover, come on over, right? And that's what's in that Rolodex, are the moments where through my gentleness and my respect and reverence and wildly creative core, help you transcribe that. So
it's interesting that you mentioned that you're learning to receive that. And I think that I'm going to speak for me personally.
mm-hmm.
For a long time, it was challenging for me to speak about the results. In my words, it still is, for me to speak about the results that my clients get. I often will share their words, their videos, because one, I don't take credit, right? I mean, that's ego to take credit for those results. But the bottom line is there's transformation waiting for people when they allow you to facilitate and guide them on this journey. So there's this fine line where people talk about, own it, right? And for me, I think there's a fine line between owning it and being arrogant and taking credit for it. So I think a lot of us on this spiritual path probably walk that line And sometimes we might even hold back sharing how we can assist people because we don't want to come across that way. Is that a little bit of what you were experiencing?
Golly, Ned, I love the synchronicity of this. Yeah. So so because I come from social work, one of the ethos, best practices, is confidentiality.
Right.
And so when we turn the page and we look at this entrepreneurial world and the online, people are talking about their clients and everything all the time. And I'm one who, I'm like, okay, was there permission granted with that? And how do we preserve the confidentiality of each person? So there's that underpinning. And I know you come from healthcare and you are HIPAA aware, right? So I think that's one sort of reframe that's going on all the time for me. And because a beautiful space is secondary to my process, or to my, it's the secondary benefit. The first benefit is the transformation that's happening within, and recognizing that I am sanctuary walking. I am sanctuary walking right now. And so how am I taking good care of the garden of me? The garden, and minding the garden of my mind is what I often say. And so because of that, I'm not flashing like, magazine worthy images up all over. I'm not, those are not my proofs. My proofs are the comments in these moments, in these text messages, and things where I stop in the hallway and I just like fall to the ground and cry because I feel so grateful and so humbled. So there's fine line in all of this. And you and I are contemporaries in age. We have farmer husbands, there's a lot of similar culture for us. But here's why, the other thing I want to share about this is when we are opening ourselves up to receiving the recognition, for lack of a better word, of the effect we have on people, and such. A recent awareness of mine was that I am helping people create space for themselves to do the work, right? The work. And this sort of remembering. And then as they do that, so this is my aha. I pass this to you in the event it helps you. My aha was like, okay, that means the majority of my clients to date are she's, identify as she's. If she's feeling peace, that's rippling out. If she's feeling reconnected, that's rippling out. If she's feeling like she's healing a disconnection or a gap, she has this effect on people to heal a disconnection and gap in the world, because she's a caregiver, because she's a healer, because she's an unseen healer, let's say. And by doing that, by claiming peace for herself, sanctuary for herself, she's essentially rippling peace in the world. So my responsibility to sanctuary becomes sacred. Having sanctuary, knowing what sanctuary is within you, knowing how to access it when you're in those moments, that is a sacred responsibility. So now I want more people to understand the transformations that are happening, because they can have that too. And we can make that real easy. And so that's the current findings over here.
Yeah. And with the work that I've done working subconsciously, I often get feedback from my clients on the ripple effect. And going back to what you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, the session that you did with me, I didn't do it, but I facilitated a process that has now created massive ripples in the universe. Every person you interact with is getting the full effect of your gifts. I didn't do that. You still had to make the choice, right, to act on it. But it's one of those things that I wish there was greater value placed on just by people at large, recognizing we're all students, we're all teachers. The words we speak, our actions, how we share, it is rippling out and it's impacting other people. So when we choose to go inward, when we choose to bring ourselves back to a place where we're at peace, where we love ourselves, where we have that knowing that we were created worthy. We all came here worthy. We came here full of potential. When we can get back to that place where we tune in and we listen and we feel and appreciate that within ourselves without being all judgy about ourselves, we're literally impacting the lives of the people around us, even if we're not directly going out and taking an action about it. And there's so much value in that that's not valued. So maybe this podcast today will affect a little bit of change in that arena. Now, I would love to just kind of wrap things up. Let everyone know a little bit of how you work with people. I know you have the membership. Are you taking private clients? How do people reach you? Because this work is just phenomenal. And I can taste the moment I go into my sanctuary around my pool. That's coming. It's on its way. It's already here.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned, everyone. So, okay. So I would just ask people to imagine a ribbon. Okay. So see the ribbon laying across a beautiful table. Okay. That ribbon is the continuum of sanctuary that I offer to the world. So when if we want to get really practical about the matter, I have a membership called Sanctuary Circle. And that is a sort of finding, making, and creating sanctuary on the daily. Like what are we doing seasonally in our days to cultivate sanctuary? There's that. Sort of moving up that ribbon, following that light, following that ribbon along is Sanctuary Design School. And Sanctuary Design School is where I teach people the process of creating their own design and tapping into their creative spark. So I have a proven formula of how to, after 30 some years, of how to do that. Further up that continuum is the more bespoke work. So for those that want to work one-on-one and create that sanctuary, that's the bespoke work that we do. And there's a couple different ways that we move through that. We work on the internal side and we work on the external side. So that is the continuum of Redbird Restorative Enterprises sanctuary work. It's a lovely continuum. I just wrapped up a masterclass called The 7 Secrets of Creating Your Personal Sanctuary Space. That is available. Would be a great thing to watch and listen to get a so as they say, a primer, a primer. And then, wherever you are sort of in that ribbon of desiring to manifest that sanctuary and tap into that magic, that ribbon sits waiting for you. And you can find me on Instagram. I do a lot of fun play over there.
It's Annie Redbird Restorative on Instagram, right?
It's Annie Redbird would be the easiest way to find me. Annie Redbird.
We'll put it in the show notes. So Annie, thank you so much for joining me today. I love this conversation. We're going to have to find a time to connect so we can just have a girls' day. At some point, I'll have to get out to Oregon because I don't have littles that I'm taking care of. But thank you for being on the show. I truly appreciate you, and I appreciate what you shared today. It was, I have no words for it.
Good.
Well, it was. Hopefully, you can feel it. Maybe
I can feel it. Yes, I feel it on the left. So that's lovely. I'm receiving it because it's coming in on the left. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to come here and play.
Beautiful. Everyone who's listened, if you have listened to the very end, please screenshot this episode, share it to your Instagram stories, and tag Annie and myself too, please. But most importantly, Annie, because this is really great stuff that she's doing, and we're working to change the world. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening to this episode of Design Your Destiny. I would love to know what resonated most with you. So just take a screenshot of this episode, share it over on your Instagram stories, and tag me at penny.chason and let me know what you thought. Also, if you head over to iTunes and you leave a positive review, it helps this podcast to help reach even more people, making a difference, elevating humanity and mankind.